Okay.
Assessment. Yeah, and then once that loads, you're like, otherwise you get feedback.
Okay. You said close it?
Yeah, you should get
okay.
And then just make sure the see how it says recording on somewhere.
Okay.
And then sharing the PowerPoint, we just want to share content.
Oh. Okay. And then, no, you're good. And then this one? There is a presenter.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is fine. Screen one or the PowerPoint? Right here. Okay. Okay. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have to do. That's fine if all of this is up here.
Yep.
Okay. And the okay. Right. I just okay. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And is the applicant's microphone on?
Yep.
It is. Okay.
So we should probably take additional seats. All right. Connected online and streaming and recording?
Yes.
Streaming on YouTube. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Good evening. Hey, full house. It's nice to see faces. All right. Thanks for joining us. Please silence your cell phones and beware of the fire exits in the room. I'd like to open up the January 25th, 2023 public hearing for the City of Albany Board of Zoning Appeals. We have 3 members tonight with us, so we do have a quorum. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the agenda. If folks have joined us for prior episodes, if you will, we've traditionally had what are called public workshops, where we have the opportunity to discuss a new application before us and make sure that we're completing the case file or getting some questions answered from the applicant before the public hearing. Since we had implemented that portion of the process, we've been able to streamline a little bit. So some of the applications that we have before us tonight, actually all the applications, although they're new and they haven't gone through the public workshop, staff has advised us that they feel they're complete and ready to move forward. So we will be accepting our, well, as we go forward, we'll be hearing from the applicants and anyone who wants to speak on behalf of the cases this evening. So the way we'll do the process works, we'll have the applicant come up. They'll work with staff and do a presentation to illustrate the finer points of their application. They'll walk through some of the standards which are applied in request of a variance. At that point in time, the board will ask the applicant questions. We may ask for some more details on a particular item. At that time, we'll defer to any public comment. That's an opportunity for folks who are speaking before or against an application, or who may want to shed some light on a particular application to come forward and speak. They may speak here in person. Obviously, we're available online for folks joining us on Zoom, so we'll ask for people to come forward at that point in time. People are also welcome to supplement that public record with a letter to the board. Sometimes 2 minutes per testimony isn't enough for some folks, and that's totally understandable. We do accept public comment by submitting letters to the planning department as well for the board to review, which may provide you with the opportunity to add some context to the comments that you're sharing tonight. After those public comments are done, the applicant is welcome to come up and rebut. If there's no comments, they don't have to come up for a rebuttal, but the board may have a couple more questions in consideration of the application. Nothing is requiring us to move forward on applications if we're seeking additional information. But if we aren't, we can move forward and make a decision on any application for us. So with that, we'll get into tonight's agenda. The first item on the agenda is area variance 127. This is an application to allow for a 24-foot setback adjacent to an undeveloped or protected property where the minimum is 150. I see Mr. Hirschberg is representing the applicant in this particular case. The address is 38 to 42 Corporate Circle. Mr. Hirschberg, welcome to the meeting.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be back again in person. This project is adjoined. We're in a Pine Bush Overlay District. We're in the I-1 Light Industrial District, which does allow storage and wholesale distribution facilities, which this is. It also allows accessory use for the parking. The only item we ran into is abutting us. If you want to go on to, this is the general area, shows you where the site is. The zoning of the site, you see where we are on the orange colored zoning is the I-1 zone. Beyond that is LC zone. That's actually the Pine Bush Preserve area. That's actually already, it's either already part of the preserve or is part of the joint portion of the preserve that was made part of the land conservation. The picture at the bottom shows the area. The parking lot to the left of that that's where the new building goes. It's already occupied by parking. So actually, we're not increasing the impervious area at all on the site. The next one shows that the piece they're talking about is a narrow wedge of property between our property and Carner Road. That is the strip of property, the vacant property that joins us. I point that out because I believe that Pine Bush Overlay District, it's the only district that's mentioned anything about a setback and vacant property. We think that was done because although it has protected properties as an issue, at the time, if there's large pieces of vacant property, if they may become part of the protected areas sometime in the future, through additional action by the Albany Pine Bush Preserve Commission, I think USDO code wanted to preserve the right of having forced setbacks from those too, just like they would from protected property. And next, the next is the letter from the Albany Pine Bush Preserve Commission. The Albany Pine Bush Preserve Commission never endorses property; they just give their opinion regarding the industry. And what the letter from Neil Gifford says is that this property would not increase the capability of them to accumulate additional property for the Pine Bush Preserve. And he says it's not recommended for protection, part of Pine Bush Preserve. So, and the other line for it, Albany Pine Bush Preserve Commission does not anticipate that the implementation of the proposed site plan will result in potentially significant negative impacts on the ability to create a biopreserve. And that's the goal here again, because pushing back was a piece of property that the Albany Pine Bush Preserve might someday in the future visualize as part of the Albany Pine Bush Preserve. And the management plan has changed every 5 years, although they're a little past due from 2017. I think it either has changed in 2022 or 2023. But again, every 5 years they change the management plan, and they may increase other properties. And I think I have one more slide. Yeah. One issue was made about the landscape. In a letter, he mentioned 2 issues regarding the site plan. One is landscaping with native pine bush species, and every species that's in that plant list is a pine bush native species. I'm familiar with pine bush native species. There's a number of projects in and adjoining the pine bush area, and we picked those things that would survive and are native to pine bush. They also recommended that the lighting system, I think I have one more slide showing the lighting system. They want us to use LED lighting rather than mercury vapor lights, because they're not attractive to insects. So that if there are any kind of butterflies or another species nearby, it wouldn't be attractive to it. So I think essentially our goal is to do it as Pine Bush River Commission recommended, and to ask that you grant this variance for the setback for the rear property. But that setback wasn't granted, and we had to hold it to 150 feet. This project cannot take place because the applicant is constructing this. Oh, you got my picture. Okay, very nice. That's the building, and it joins 38 Corpus Circle, which is provided by FYE, an entertainment company, and they intend to expand into this too. And they need the 75,000 square feet, so that if in fact we got honored 150 square foot setback, we couldn't fit that much square footage on the site, and consequently, this project would have to be abandoned. Prepared to answer questions.
I'll go on this next. Can we talk a little bit about, if we're going through the test? Can we talk a little bit about the circumstances of alternatives considered? So when you're going through the potential development of the site and how to create a compliant setback, and what impact does it have on the nature of the property that you're living?
Well, like I said, if they have 150 feet, there's no way we could fit in a 75,000 square foot building with loading docks and everything else. The project is just not, that's the only alternative that we have on that 150 foot setback.
And the lot is currently developed. We're not talking about Virginia's property.
Yeah, no, the parking lot, it would remain, it's still going to remain an asphalt parking lot. It's currently serves 38 Corpus Circle. When they had more employees, they needed more parking. They said to cut back their number of employees, even though they need more storage space for materials and distribution.
And I'm looking at the tax map now, just to familiarize myself with it. That's a really oddly shaped parcel between you and Corn Road.
Yeah.
And it doesn't appear to me to be developable behind that particular piece of property.
Yeah. No, as a matter of fact, it's a remnant. When Conner Road was put in, it split a parcel, and that's a remnant of the parcel across the street.
Yeah,
and that was just left there, and they could have adjusted the right of way line and taken entirely, but they left it there, so it's sitting there. And I don't think there's any reasonable use to be made of that site by itself, and maybe annexed to another parcel, another piece of property, like 48 Corpus Circle, which is right next to the other vacant place.
How many additional questions about it? The site and understand the development proposal. Some questions about it?
So just for clarity, it sounds like the rule is in place, right? The zoning rules that exist with that issue exists to protect potentially the development of the land that's adjacent, or the protection of the property. Compared with the Pine Bush, so you checked with them, they don't have any chance to defend that area or the land next to it, to the basement. Which is, I guess, so I'm just trying to reframe some of the argument that you're saying, but you're saying having a shorter setback. We understand what the protection is, what the rule is in place to achieve, and in this particular case, it's not needed because really the way the other parcel is set up. The Pine Bush is not going to need it, and so there's no way to develop them.
Yeah. I think it's obvious looking at the Pine Bush Overlay District that they said for protected parcel and vacant land. I think the only logical thing to assume was they're protecting vacant land for the potential future, because it's in the Pine Bush Overlay District. Working for Pine Bush goals. It's the only reason to protect vacant property in theory that it may become part of the Pine Bush Preserve someday in the future. But this parcel right here, they have no interest in obtaining it to be part of the Pine Bush Preserve.
Yeah, it wouldn't be contiguous by any means. It'd be pretty disparate if it was part of the Pine Bush. It wouldn't have any significant value because it's kind of locked in between development and the road.
A number of those trees you see on there on that parcel down below are black locust, which is the plague of the Pine Bush. Black locust is a deciduous tree that grows and shades out pine bush vegetation. So the piece across the road had been completely covered with black locust, and pine bush has since cleared that out. You see a very clear site. There's very little vegetation left on it because the pine bush vegetation has all been shaded out by the existing black locust.
So I think, although the request to change from 150 feet setback yeah, I think in theory it's substantial. I mean, the argument here is that it's in the character of the neighborhood because there's the adjoining properties that are blocked as well. Although there's no other alternatives. Somewhat there was consideration given to that. And I just wanted to say that, in my opinion, it's still substantial, but it's balanced that.
I might point out that the site is entirely taken up by development. It's either stormwater management basins, the large stormwater management basin on the north, and a smaller stormwater management basin on the south. And the building and the parking lot and the loading docks and the circular maneuvering area need for circulation area. So we're not in a position where essentially, if the goal was to make it less substantial, if we go to 100 feet, something like that, any significant reduction in our capacity to build a 75,000 square foot building would mean this project. And I think it's an ideal project for the site because it is an industrial park and there's uses that were originally envisioned for the site.
What is the proposed setback is 10 feet from the lot line?
Yeah. We moved the building up front. We had to move it back a little bit further because there's an easement at the front of the property. But we closed up as tight as we could to Industrial Park Road and we moved it over the site. We kept it. The 10-foot setback is on the south side, and the street setback, I think it's like 13 feet. You got to move it back a little bit, which needs to. Otherwise, the restrictions are 10-foot maximum. But again, no, it may not be. I don't know whether or not it's done that. We were advised to move it up as far as we could, and that building lies exactly on the easement line for Verizon easement, which runs in front of the
So I guess I'll ask the biggest question is why couldn't the building be reoriented towards the front of the parcel as it faces corporate circle? In essence, I know it's not as simple as this calculation, but shifted 90 degrees.
Well, number one, if we had the same building area and the same parking area, we would need the same amount of stormwater management facility. And again, if we turned it that way, we'd have to pull it to the back of the property. We couldn't put it up front. Or I suppose we could and circulate behind it, but we need the same amount of area for loading docks and parking. As a matter of fact, this takes advantage of the adjoining parcel where we have a cut through between the adjoining parcels so trucks can actually circulate both. The loading docks on 38 Corporate Circle also, so the trucks feeding the building can circulate through the property and out that direction. So again, I think this is probably the most efficient use of the site for our goal is, and I don't think reorienting the building in total would do much to us since, we might be able to move the building. It still wouldn't be 150 feet off because the building dimensions are such that it would probably cut off, 30 or 40 feet of the building. And the truck and the loading docks would be very inconvenient to get to at the rear. So I don't think it's feasible for us to do that.
Because that turnaround is needed for vehicle movements?
Yeah, again, you need all that area shown in front of those loading docks all the way over to that line of parking for maneuvering space for it. That's for a WB 67 truck cars, and that space is 104 feet clear from the building to there. So if we turn it the other way, we're not so sure we could fit that in behind the building over to the side adjoining Corner Road. We did try other orientations of the building, but because of the proximity to 38 and the way they work together, material be moving back and forth between them, it's sort of necessary to keep our service area, our entrance area. We have an on-grade loading dock there in the office area, all faces towards 38 Corporate Circle, which is another parcel owned by the applicant and leased to employee.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak online or in the audience? Well, seeing that, I don't believe that there's a defensible argument about the nature of that property being useful from an acquisition for land conservation, given the support of the Pine Bush and their understanding that there's no value. The particular piece of parcel makes sense to me that this is kind of this area is not interested in to maintain the 150-foot setback. Also, given the fact that you're only measured it a few hundred feet from, or not 200 feet, but given the fact that that parcel is abutted by New Corner Road means it's not significant development because of that narrow distance also. So I have no problem with this exchange.
So it's due to
So we would need to, since we're lead agency, we would need to take an action to see here to say that there's a positive or negative. We can take that action and still deliberate. We can seek that action. Take additional actions to.
Well, just as a type 2, you could just think it's that you don't have to vote on it.
So we don't have to make it.
Yeah.
You feel comfortable moving forward? Would you like more information about site design? I understand that the perspective and necessity for the setback and the reasons why that land is being considered as part of the Pine Bush and continuing those to the preservation efforts.
Accurately, the reason for that rule doesn't seem to apply to this property there.
Yeah. Wishes of the board.
I'll make a motion to grant area variance 127 to allow for a 24-foot setback adjustment to undeveloped or protected property.
Second.
Have a second. Do we need in the motion to picture as long as we discuss that?
So it's ministerial.
Recognizing
it's
a type of
Fair. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving down the agenda. Next item is 722 Western Avenue. This is an application by homeowners David Sawinski and Michelle Mann. I hope I'm pronouncing your names correctly. This is an application to construct a 6-foot tall fence for residential use. The board acknowledges that the fence has already been constructed, but as regards to the Board of Zoning Appeals review of a particular project, we have to take a fresh look at a particular case. So the application before us is review for the construction of a 6-foot fence on a corner lot with a 10-foot setback of a abutting driveway, where the maximum height allowed is 3 feet. Do we have the applicants here before us tonight to discuss the case? Great, thank you. Introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. James Winsky, resident at 706 West Avenue. Put the fence up. I don't know if you guys ever reviewed my application. but I had a permit from the city. Did the work per the permit. Permit expired. A couple months later, the city came back and rescinded my permit.
As far as the dates, sorry, why did you make a presentation about that? Okay, sorry.
It might be easier question and answer, so
Okay.
I'm not comfortable.
Whatever's comfortable with you. Can you walk us? So you got your permit, you constructed the fence, then you rescinded.
Yes. Yeah.
This is the fence. Made a visit today to look at it. Okay. And can you walk through some of the steps to deciding where to put the fence? Why 6 feet was a necessity?
My wife's dream. I don't know how close it is, and eventually we can do a pool.
Okay.
So that's why it would be a 6-foot fence would be needed. Yeah, put that fence there. We had a fence before that would mostly had bushes going through it and stuff like that. So we wanted to get that down. So I did the permit, did the work myself. My own structural steel company, Mr. Study Science, so that's why. So make that.
Okay. A little bit wonky questions concerning it's there, but can we talk through how you decided to lay the fence at that location?
Yeah, I wanted to match my across the street neighbor, which I think we have pictures of. Mm-hmm. They have a 1 foot right there. Yep, thank you. So they're right there, and I was like their setup. So I was like, yeah, that's pretty much what I like to do. So difference between my property and mine is their driveway is there, so they have to back out. They've been there almost 40 years. My wife was born. They've never had an accident or any trouble with this stuff. This right here shows. I just wanted to do like real quick, like a 5-block radius from your house. These are all basically these all show the same condition. Some are a little different. Some are new. Some are that were already permitted, and they were permitted since the new code. They were permitted in the last 2 years. So that was a little. You can go to the Colonial Avenue.
And we look for permits for the fence of the application, see if they were legally done. Or sometimes people put them up without.
The one that we're going to, the one that's on Colonial, that I wasn't able to pull that for foil, but the man who lived there told me that he had that permit for the last 2 years and he built that. And I think if I could show you, I'm going to have it here. I don't know if it's on there.
So one of my concerns, obviously, is I hate to boil it down to these types of responses, but when it comes to fences, a lot of times we get them and people say, "Hey, my neighbor put this up and everything is fine because they put it up and it's stand there." Sometimes people don't get permits, sometimes they don't go for the Board of Zoning appeals, and it makes it more difficult for people to do it the right way with a permit.
Yes,
and so I understand.
I do structural steel. I don't see I steel over kids' heads.
Yeah.
I
understand. Sometimes it's difficult for us to look at comparisons where other structures may have been built.
Other structures.
Sure. So, there you go. This one is the Colonial Avenue. The man just moved from there, Mr. Noonan, that he did that permit in the last 2 years.
It's taking a while to
load. The house next to that is actually the old farmhouse. What Homestead's named after, it was John Holmes' house, the big farmhouse in. That had the same exact condition. So basically the same exact condition, right? You pull out of that driveway, that fence is there. That fence has been there for a long time and it was permitted. So same exact condition. And that is literally one black oak fence. So this is brand new. The fence was existing. This gate is brand new. This neighbor just put in a pool. Again, same condition. They would pull out into the sidewalk. They'd have to see. I think that setback, let's say from the fence to the sidewalk, is probably about 12 inches. I did mine as 18 and put the permit in as 18. Again, if what I've done is unsafe, then I don't know how we approach every one of these in the area.
Yeah, to that, I can't speak to what was built with permits, what was built without, should have received a variance, whether setback, what didn't. The primary concern that we have with fences are things like sight. And my concern, as I think any parent's concern, being my kids on the right bike, right down the street, to be able to see for a hard time. That's my main fear of walking the street. That's sort of situation. So that's why we have some consideration of permit review when it comes to fence heights and opacity.
Well, again, if I drop this to 3 foot, then I can't have a pool. So if I'm now telling every person in the city of Albany who has a pool, they have to change their fence to 3 foot on a lot. Like I still,
yeah,
the code doesn't work.
Well, we're bound by the code since we're looking to grant circumstances for an appeal process. We are bound to the code because it isn't law.
I'm just so for clarification, the city code requires a 6 foot fence, or it's the state one. 4 foot. 4 foot. 4 foot. Okay. That's the New York State building. You're going to have the 40 to 4 foot fence.
So you can see why 4 feet would be necessary. Really, do you want to add anything to your comments before we go to public comment?
No, again, I had permit. I felt I understood everything right. Mm-hmm. I did it for code and permit. That the city rescinded it after the work was complete. After the permit was closed, I have some major issues with that, but I'm trying to move forward as best I can.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. At this moment, we'll open it up to public comment. Folks are granted 2 minutes each for public comment. If you have more to add for a particular application, please feel free to supplement the record with a letter of communication to staff. So with that, we'll call it the first speaker. Who's first signed up? That Krupnick? Their name and where you live and
my house is right next, and that's our former car. So Mr. Swinsky and this man were informed when they started working on the fence that the second pouring of the footings was over what would be the extension of our property line over the parcel line, and I sent some pictures and some documentation and an email to show that. In addition, Mr. Swinsky had a survey done. Because there was a little bit of contention going about where the fence was placed. Initially, we didn't realize that the fence was on city property. We thought it was on our property, and that's the last section. And we tried to handle it amicably. Initially, we got verbal assurances from Mr. Swinsky that he would remove that last section of the fence and restore what we thought was our property. It's actually over the parcel. Pictures that I sent in can demonstrate that. Our major concern is backing up the driveways that are very hazardous. We've had numerous close calls. We had a very, very close call with one who was wearing my earbuds. She didn't hear me coming down the driveway, and I can't see backing out the driveway. So the rear of the car is over this one of the sidewalk. We're concerned for our neighbors. We're concerned for ourselves. Cars can turning off of Western Avenue at a very rapid rate of speed at times. And we try to be as careful as we can. But the lack of a good sight line now, since the fence was installed, has put our neighbors at danger and put us at danger. It's we've again tried to handle this amicably neighbors with this man for over 32 years. Mr. Swinsky for a little bit less than that. They've always been good neighbors. We've always gotten along, and we're sorry that it's become contentious. But the fence remains a clear and present danger to us and to our neighbors. and we're sorry that he has to go through the trouble of removing it. That's, that's, we do feel badly about that, but we feel like we're at risk.
Thank you. Can I ask, so if your issue is not with the height of the fence overall, but just that one portion?
Well, we didn't realize that the height of the fence towards their house, that doesn't bother us. The last two sections definitely interfere with our sidewalks.
So there's these black posts.
Right, so where that second, first black post is over what the extension of the property line, you can kind of see the edge of our fence there. The second black post is about where, approximately where the property line of the parcel line would be. And additionally, it's very, very close, it becomes very close to the fire hydrant. That's an issue. If there ever was, God forbid, an emergency where the fire had to access the fire hydrant. But it's those two sections that really interfere with our schools.
Do you have other people that would like to speak on before against the case? Yeah.
I'm his wife. Can I speak?
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Megan McKay. I'm born and raised in Albany, so some of the fences from the presentation. Similar fences, the fence across the street. We have lived in the house for 33 years, and the fence across the street has been there since before we moved in. So it's definitely a new occupation. The one on Euclid Avenue has been there since I was a little kid, running not late for church and Holy Cross. That fence has been the same Euclid Avenue as well. But my major concern is fence was moved in, and Dave explained kind of about 2 years before we started it, and moved it in. I was that it was going to be closer to the sidewalk, and I said, "Oh, I'm surprised you can put it that close to the sidewalk because I would have impact us getting on." He said that. No, he's checked it with the city and it's approved. So obviously from his presentation tonight, that wasn't that true. But the fence that was there before was back. You can barely see our fence post through the lilac bush there. So their fence was just a little bit beyond there, and it was covered with honeysuckle and their sweet and other pines. So if they weren't trimmed back, it was a cycling problem, but it wasn't like this. And it's very hard to imagine having driven out by a fence in that similar location for the 33 years that we've lived there and raised our kids there with bikes and wagons and everything else, that it's hard to imagine how a 6-foot fence there would be so incredibly obstructive to anyone coming down that sidewalk. So people walking little dogs, you can't even see the little dog before you're into the person. So I've had a near miss coming out of that driveway in a bicycle. He was really speeding up really fast and running in the corner. And I've been riding my bike down that driveway for a long time. And the fence over on the Thornhill Avenue, that fence has been there well more than 2 years. And the fence in the ground, it's a fence that I believe belongs to the property facing the house. So our concern is really safety. It's in fact when the car beeps up, it identifies that as a cycling problem and entirely everything until you're on the side.
Thanks for sharing with us tonight. Do anybody else that wishes to speak on behalf or against that proposal? Do anybody online sign up to speak? We've all got all 2 people doing this.
You see them with the participants. You scroll to the top. It's just no. Okay. No. We did receive three additional letters that were in support of it.
Yeah, you did 7 on the record. Yeah. Mr. Zawinski, did you want to come back up to rebuttals?
Yes.
So that lilac bush there, that is the sightline problem that has always been there. That is used to hide the illegal driveway that is in there. That was not done with permit. I didn't want to get into the nitty and gritty of this.
Yeah, let's stick to the fence if we can.
Okay. Well, the safety concerns have come up. That only became an issue when I reported these other items. So why I find the safety concerns disingenuous, because there's a very simple way to make that safe. When we're in the military, it's first move forward. You ever see a fire truck? It backs into the firehouse. It pulls out forward. If they really thought they were unsafe, they could pull in, check right, check left, back out, and come out forward.
I understand your comment, but let's keep the discussion about the fence.
Safety.
Yeah, you're probably
Yeah, so again, it was just stated that these fences have been around, the ones I pointed out, some of them 40 years. Where are all the accidents? I mean, you guys, so we're saying that this code has allowed horrible accidents over the last 40 years.
And this is once we don't write the code, we're handed the code by the city council who writes laws, the city hall.
Yeah.
We're asked to be, if you will, a pressure plate for them when sometimes the codes create situations. So we are asked to interpret and make judgment on where we can see opportunities for folks who are seeking the variance and balance the benefits of the applicant versus the detriment of the surrounding community. Fences, signs, setbacks are a classic example of where we're looking to make a balancing effort in those impacts. So we're also beholden to New York State law. And so courts will say to us when we're looking at an application that we must balance the outcomes of the cases. We must balance the benefits of the applicant against the detriment of their neighbors. We must grant the minimum variance necessary for the benefit. And we cannot grant a variance for somebody that's going to have ultimately create a dangerous situation for the city or the people that are in this. So those are the rules and requirements by which the New York State courts impose on us. And we are stewards of the law, just like any other law, a body that is responsible for interpreting the law when there are situations. So I'd like to stick to the conversation.
So separate for laws.
There's a standard for the size.
Yep. And what we added is 6 foot.
We deviated from that standard. I apologize on behalf of the permit situation. As a homeowner myself, I can understand how that is frustrating.
Yeah, well, let's be correct. Any change here, or any change that I have to do, but that cost is not mine. I'm going to the city.
And that is you're free right to do. We are concerned with things, and I think the code is the council. One of the requirements we have is to minimize the variance necessary. Clearly, this is an application where the structure's already been built. So normally we would spend time on looking at alternatives considered or efforts to minimize the variance in regards to something that would be futurely built. Like you, I would consider myself a pragmatic person. So my first question is, in regards to that last panel, is there anything adverse to your particular project to turning that last panel towards your yard to enhance that sight line in that particular location and be able to provide a little bit more of a sight line for anybody entering the project?
I can make that last panel a little big and make it gorgeous like I did. I can do a iron.
But in regards to moving,
that's the other thing, right? You're saying you want me to swing that post 45 degrees?
Yeah. If that helps to reduce or eliminate that challenge with a sight line for your neighbor or a future neighbor or a person that lives in your neighborhood walking down the street, if that in essence helps reduce the sight line, we are both minimizing the variance and working to eliminate what seems to be a safety concern.
Yeah, I can change that to 45. I can make it okay cost. But I can just do it like a gate. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have a picture of the gate. It's basically, like raw iron. It's a floral setup. Yeah, I could do that. I mean, to be honest with you, I'd probably just make it a gate then.
Do council?
We do.
Council, I'm going to throw something at you. If we were to condition this, how would we structure this condition I hate saying these two words together. Condition contingent upon a design that the board would find approval to eliminate what we perceive as the obstruction of the site.
I'm gonna have to look into that and get back to you tomorrow.
I don't know. She's gonna have to look into it.
Okay. I believe that we are able to make a decision that balances the benefit to the applicant and is able to ensure that we are preserving a sight line to minimize damage created by a fence being that close to your neighbor's driveway. I would like to hear back from council as far as how to structure that decision. My only question to you is, how do you bring the fence to meet the back of the property and meet up with the other fence in order to create the fence that's necessary to?
So it's very difficult there. And I know you don't get this. The fence that's there is a 6-foot fence in my neighbor's front yard. It's not code.
The wood fence?
Yes. And the back of the fence is facing me, which again is not the code. And these are the items I brought up that started all this. And again, the driveway, the fake driveway there with the stone, we're still waiting for the FOIL request, but that no one in the city of Albany is going to permit that. That bush there that they're saying is not a sight line is there to hide that car. That car is illegally parked. The grade has been changed. This is all stuff I'm working through the city. And when I started doing that, the sight line became a problem. So again, more codes that are violated there is that fence is in front of the property that needs to be opaque. And that needs to be 4 foot.
So that fence, the wood fence we're looking at is a side fence. That's the side of their property.
Side of the property. So their front yard has a 6-foot fence, which is against code.
No, not by city. That's not their front yard. That's the side yard.
Anything beyond
the plane of the house, right?
Yes,
sorry, yes.
Yes, so that is 6 foot.
So are you planning to replace that portion of the fence with a 6-foot fence, or are you going with a 4-foot fence?
Oh, that's not good.
They install a fence, not the code.
Are you continuing your own fence down that line?
That's why I matched to theirs, and that's why there's a leg line. Eventually, when code comes through and this stuff gets fixed, they have 2 shop reporters that can meet against them for this work. That fence needs to be taken out. I mean, it's not the code. The city's working on it, waiting to find out where it is. Mr. LaJoy has been working very diligently with me, but he can't give me any more information on the FOIA. So if that fence did get removed, the grading gets fixed because that car and all that water runs onto my property, kills my mother-in-law's road bushes. It's a problem. You know, the grade has been snuffed up. There's been more dirt and more dirt added over the years for that driveway, and then that all creeps over to my property. When Mr. Hirschberg's company came out and did the survey, it was obvious that the elevations changed from when they did that work. And that fence is also on my property from the survey. The stake that is in pictures is actually 6-inch offset because they couldn't put the stake in the right spot because the fence is on my property in that far.
So what I don't want to do, and would be outside the board's jurisdictions to weigh in on a private property issue. What I can tell you is if we can work with council to try to come up with a minimum variance that is pragmatic and a balance, we'd like to do that. I would like to make things easier for everybody who is neighboring another property undergoing development. So what I would like to do is I'm going to make a motion to table this. We'll work to see if we can create something that creates that balance in order to meet those tests. Do
you want me to get your design?
We'll talk to council as far as how.
What the work is, you know, that was 6 foot from post to driveway. That panel is a little over 4. So if I make that last panel, okay,
we will need to supplement the record. I would need to give you that information.
Yep.
And we will work with council to make sure that we're doing our due diligence so we're not passing along bad information. But in the meantime, let's table this. We can work to make sure that we have the information.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Do we have a second? Thank you. A motion to table.
Yes. Second.
Favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you.
And then this is a type 2, Martin, if you, I don't know. Yeah.
We haven't.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We can't say type 2 and then everything changes.
I see what you're saying. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Avi walking through the whole process.
We'll be in contact. Thanks. Okay, let's see. Joining us again, Dan. We have a series of area variances. This is in relation to project 499, property address is 788 Central Avenue, aka 760 Central Avenue. Replacement of existing signage, new signage and lettering for Destination Kia according to corporate branding. Like we've been here before. The request is for a series of variances. Area variance 129, 30, 131, 132, 133, 134. I'm not going to read them verbatim. They are on the agenda. With that, we'll welcome Mr. Hertzberg. I assume you're representing that.
I'm Daniel Hertzberg. This is Jane Burrell representing them. The site is, as you know, Kia Destination. It is one of two dealerships. There's a Nissan dealership just further west on Central Avenue, shares the same property. So some of the concerns regarding the variances had to do with the number of signs on a parcel, and some of those would be less if you took them as two separate parcels. Because the way these projects were developed, there were originally 9 parcels on the site. They're all combined into one because both dealerships shared a portion of the parking. So in order to do that, they combined them both into one, all into one parcel. Now they have 2 dealerships on it. Kia is the one closer to the city, the one with the U-shaped building on it. I'd like to go through these. I go through them all again. If you want to stop and talk about one or the other, we can do that, or we can just go through them. This is existing and proposed. The Kia has rebranded. They say essentially the black with the more modern Kia logo is what they have, and they sent a note. Mr. Morrell saying essentially these are the signs that you shall install as per your agreement with Kia. Now in position they want to install us, but now we have to deal with the fact is these are pre-existing signs, and because we're changing a pre-existing non-conforming use, we essentially have to go back and take a look at whether or not that's reasonable. So that shows the existing signs and proposed signs. If we go individually, this is the Kia logo sign. Existing one is 81.28 square feet. And the next one is the proposed sign. It actually says Kia. Okay, that's their logo. But that's 52.1. So it's smaller. It's still not the 32 square feet, which is the maximum size allowed. Talking now not the numbers, it was also too many wall signs, because I point out that every dealership does have signs identify them by logo of the dealership of the manufacturer represent. They have another one with their name on it, whether it be destination, whether it be another name, and so all these signs sort of have to go on the building if it's the identified properly. And the third one is a service sign. That shows where to go for service. Obviously, and there's two garage doors in front of the building. This is centered over the 2 of them. And again, all these signs are either small or reasonably close in size to the ones that were previously there. We know that doesn't give us relief because they're more than 32 square feet. That's why we're asking for a variance. But we can't really. We're stuck with a couple of issues. Number one, they changed their font type. They changed that font type is different than the other one. If you take a close look at it, you see that there's more space between some of the letters. And that's part of the font. So, the font itself does increase the size of the sign. If you want to go to the next one, there's this is a more interesting one. This is the freestanding sign. The Kia one at the top is much larger than the Kia logo on ours. But because of the way the sign is set up, and the entire blackness is set up down the entire sign, that's all considered sign area. Where on the one on the left, the existing one, the only one considered sign area is the Kia logo at the top. And the rest of it was a pole holding it up. So we're a little in a catch-22 there. Even though the logo is smaller, the sign area seemed quite large. The other issue is here, we were able to reduce the height of it from 33 feet to 30 feet. Okay. Which, is some progress going back for it. Meanwhile, a freestanding sign in the city is 8 feet tall. Practically 8 feet tall.
Yep.
I'll hold out that if you take a look down Central Avenue, you're hard pressed to find freestanding signs less than 8 feet tall.
I think that the horse left the barn for Central Avenue.
Yeah. But even on other areas, the whole idea, the freestanding sign, if you're in a residential area to have your apartments identified, 8 feet makes sense. If you're quite often use monument signs that are only 6 feet tall. We do, the freestanding sign in certain locations makes sense. Central area, it doesn't work. So here's the sign context. So we are able to remove one freestanding sign. That one with the arrow on it will be removed. So we're reducing one freestanding sign with this application. That affects the numbers. These show other signs in there. I don't want to tell you the area of the tallest signs are larger than your 32 square feet. Actually, they're larger than your 64 square feet. The Westgate sign is obviously much larger. It's a pre-existing sign. As a matter of fact, it's an historic sign right now. So again, they're have it in there. The Army sign is larger. That the line with the sign with the signboard on it is larger. And if you go to the next one, these are other signs in our area, which are taller than 8 feet and larger than 32 feet. So I believe that in many ways, we're consistent with the area there. We made a step in the right direction, trying to reduce one freestanding sign, we reduce the size of other signs. But to have us go back to conforming signs and make it virtually impossible to operate the dealership, because we have to be able, we have two destination Kia and destination this time. We have to have Kia on our building, have to have Kia on our freestanding sign. So I go through and I made up a 6 separate packages.
Yeah, I saw there's a considerable amount of material.
So I if you want me to, I can go through that. But I think the case is made just by observance of pre and post, pre non-conforming, post after our issue, after we've given our if these various circumstances. We don't think that sign looks. I think the sign looks less obtrusive. The entire signboard at the front of the building was less obtrusive than the old white with the red kiosk. I think it is it's a nice change regarding the choice. So I'm prepared to answer any questions. If you want me to go further on any of those 6 variances, I can certainly do that.
Can you address how those signs minimize the variance?
Yeah. Well, I think in the variance application, I tried to do that. If you take a look, you're viewing this from the street. And the street is, we're driving by probably 100 feet, 90 or 100 feet from it from driving. We believe that if we made the Kia logo much smaller, it would make it hard to see. Destination smaller and service smaller, we don't think it makes it as noticeable as it should be identify that they travel the public. We have people traveling both ways on Central Avenue, on the other side, looking towards the Kia destination. And this is somewhat self-created. It's self-created by the Kia people who created it for the Borellis, that they can do it. Actually, it's a huge expense for every dealership to have to do the sign revamp. But every 10 years or so, that's what the manufacturers do. They get a fresh look and they want their signs to reflect it. So I think it's minimal regarding what we need to have it.
I did see the communication from them. Is there any communication or record in regard to them mandating these signs?
Yeah, we have like a letter in the packages signed from the Kia representative.
That's dated December 14th.
Yeah,
but that doesn't reference the size. It just says we have a new brand.
Okay,
I understand. Okay. So given I understand the necessity to change the signs for a rebranding effort, but what again sounds like a broken record. The board is mandated to minimize the variance necessary, and I'm not seeing anything in the record as far as the signs have to be a certain size based upon what the mothership is passing down. So
well, but I think I just heard Mr. Frischman say was that the size is not mandated at Kia. The size is mandated as the size of visitor. Or you're arguing that the size of the proposed sign is what you think is the most minimal sign you need to go to the whole street.
Yeah, but meanwhile, the Kia sign didn't say they had to be a certain size of letter. Meanwhile, the Kia contracts with the sign company was given the applicant a sign package that matches his need. Obviously, if you had a building that didn't have as much frontage on the road, you would compact those signs with that. And maybe it would make sense to make the destination sign in the middle. The Leah logo is sort of minimized. The service is sort of what you need to have people going there. So maybe the destination sign could be smaller, but the package, based upon location, the package is generated by GAP.
Yeah, I think one thing too, just to note on the sign itself, see those signs are all lit signs, and the new signs are backlit signs, so they're not really as obvious. And Central Avenue, while theoretically it has a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, it's much akin to a highway, so you have people driving by quite rapidly. And the Kia franchise itself, we're actually the number 6 volume Kia store in the country. So all of the other dealerships that are in the top 10 have 50-foot highway signs. So comparatively, if they're looking at our dealership, they're saying, why do you have such a small sign as it is now? So,
look. Meanwhile, that sign is taken from the eastbound driving lane, the first eastbound driving. You can see that those are certainly not overpowered and essentially identify the size, and our signs are either even inside or smaller. Destination sizes virtually identical.
Are there other Kia dealerships on Central Avenue nearby that could cause brand confusion? I mean, you're number 6. It sounds like people are missing.
There's a Kia all the way out by the Schenectady, Central Avenue and Schenectady.
State Street and Schenectady.
Yeah.
I guess the one point that I would just make with that is, a lot of our business, we have people that fly from California to rent cars from us. We have people that drive up from Maryland. So they're accustomed to dealerships that to be able to identify them that have never been into Albany itself. So it's very important that we have that ability to guide them to our dealership. For the city of Albany itself, it brings people into the airport, it brings people in to stay. And, as a family-owned business that's been there for a long time and very engaged with the community, we've seen what happens when family-owned dealerships that are of that same caliber move out of the area. Like when Armory Garage sold to a national company, that the volume went in half, their employee count went in half, their land footprints, went down, and now it's, becoming low-income housing, or whatever the current plan.
Affordable housing, so.
Affordable, I'm sorry. So, I think there's a benefit to what a successful family-owned business can bring to the city, not only in, sales tax receipts, say when you buy a car in the county, but service. We have people that drive an hour and a half for service from us, and they're driving from Glens Falls, they're driving from Kingston, and that's all money that flows into the coffers of the city. Not to mention when people are in town, they have a tendency to go out to dinner at restaurants in the city of Albany and stuff like that. So, I appreciate the consideration that you guys are extending to us, and we understand that it's just important to be able to operate a business successfully. It's not an easy business.
Can you go back to that slide with the street view at the front?
Talking about this or the other one?
Good. So is that freestanding sign will be eliminated as part of this application?
Yeah, that small sign, the smaller freestanding sign gets eliminated, and the Kia sign goes down by 3 feet height in there. So it does become wider. Yeah. But you're looking at this driving at the easterly line. Right now you're in a car driving by. If you go over in the other line heading west, I can't do it on Google, but you'd be another 30 or 40 feet away. I would hold that those signs are fairly minimal given the need to be able to identify. Again, I don't think the destination or the Kia logo sign are excessive, and the service sign is just to identify people. I know we're supposed to be able to minimize it, but the minimization is a function of keeping it functional. And signage has got to be able to identify and attract people to the right location. Again, I think we've done the best we could with the freestanding sign. Unfortunately, I like that new black rope all the way down, and by definition, it becomes what's called the matrix. So it's all counted as sign, even though the existing Kia sign is actually higher and the logo on top is bigger. But if you go to some of the pictures, if we're lost in this area where the other signs are bigger and taller, and there are pictures of signs on buildings that show logos that are much larger than the Kia logo. The dealership that we call the name on the building is larger than the destination. I know I don't want to pick on the follow, but even down beyond the garage, they have five signs. We're 3 again. So whether or not we're consistent with the area, I think we're doing a good job of bringing it back as consistent with the areas we could and making as much accommodation as we can to meet the code. Obviously, it sounds like a variance because we need all 6 variances. Originally, was 7. We've identified one sign that we didn't need a variance anymore. Again, when we're talking about the impact of the increased signs on the site, I think it's minimal because, like I said, if you lost in a maze here, if somebody can't drive by on Central Road and see your destination, they won't know where they're going.
Any questions? Do any members of the public that wish to speak before or against the application?
Let me just double check on here, but nope.
I personally, there's a point out here. I'd like a little more time to review this. I feel we unfair to review this. I ended up going through one more. I appreciate the volume of details you provided. I'd like to review the application and the evidence you submitted a little bit more. So I could start with the board. I'd like to table this and come back and we have of people at the meeting, because I don't think it'd be appropriate to make a decision. Yeah.
So we'll take it up at your next phase.
We'll take this up. Yes, we will definitely take this up at our next meeting, but there's a lot here. I'd like to digest it. If I may, that's one of the privileges, I guess, being chair, is I'd like to review it. Okay.
Martin, just to clarify, are you looking for any additional information?
No, I think we have a good sense of the application. I just like to take a site visit and read through it all. It's a lot. So I feel it would be more fair for me to read through it.
If during your review you find you need any,
no, that's
please reach out.
And I will do so within at least 2 weeks of the meeting, so there's time to negotiate. Okay, I won't spring anything on you, but I would like a little bit more time to read this. So, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, moving to the agenda. One more application before us. That's 442 Madison Avenue. The applicant is ProSigns, applying on behalf of Viva for Sunoco. The proposal is an alteration to an existing non-conforming sign with a new sign cabinet and LED pricer. Area variance 135. So do we have a representative of the applicant?
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Greg Quattro. I work for Sunoco. In the audience is Sarjeet Singh. He is the actual owner and operator of the location. What we're asking is to basically just reface an existing non-conforming sign. As you can see, it says mobile. He's now selling Sunoco gasoline. So one, to identify the brand, to properly represent what brand you are buying. And the second change would be to take the existing manual priced signs, or somebody has to manually go out all the time of weather and remove them and change them to an LED sign that will change when the dispensers are changed. So it gives you more consistency with the pricing of the fuel, that you're not misleading the consumer, that it all changes automatically. So that's really all that we're asking for, is to rebrand from mobile to Sunoco, not changing any sizes or dimensions. The other benefit is the sign will be, sanded, primed, and repainted, and match with, the existing work we've done to the canopy so far.
So as part of the, I'm just looking at the application, we'll go through to the test. In regards to the character of the neighborhood, you state that the sign is not out of place with the character of the neighborhood. Can you talk about why you believe that?
That sign has been there for less than we could tell, was approximately 35 years. There's other signs up and down the road that are very similar, including Dunkin' Donuts, that have a freestanding sign, out at the point of their businesses. So we just, we don't think it's loud or obnoxious.
Yeah. Also, something that would be allowed.
Correct. We don't think the color schemes or anything, or there's some creative areas in that neighborhood that have some, you can see the one right there in that picture, a little bit louder signs and things like that. It's it's 100 plus year brand that we're putting up. It's well known to be all the area.
Let's talk about alternatives considered. Your application really didn't speak to any alternatives considered.
Yeah, I mean, the only alternative, I think, to the new code, there wasn't really a lot of alternatives that we could do. One, you couldn't have a sign, that was in that 3 to 6 foot, like monument style for blocking view. And if you look at the property, the only existing place to place a sign is basically at that corner with the ingress and egress to the business.
So that wouldn't be possible to enclose the curb cuts, which are wider than is regulated now?
What do you mean close?
So the curb cuts that are out for entry and exit to the business on the Madison Avenue side are not compliant as it is now. So are you saying to go to a monument sign you still wouldn't want to modify the.
Well, I think the problem with the monument sign was I apologize if I don't know the whole code, but I was told that a sign couldn't be between that 3 to 6 foot height range to do a monument sign for sight lines on the corner.
Yeah, that's correct. So it couldn't be within 20 feet of the intersecting curb lines, and that would place it. It would just be a little bit farther back from where this is. So essentially, it would be like right over here.
Talking a few feet to be compliant.
Correct.
Again, I'm representing us. I don't know what the sign company had. I apologize. I thought that they applied originally and were turned down for a couple other options, and then that's why we came to an ask for a variance.
Yeah, this is the only thing that I have before us. We don't have any evidence of alternatives considered for this particular project. It just says there's nowhere to go. It's not really an answer for alternative considerations.
I apologize.
Don't you apologize?
I was
this is what I'm required to do.
I was just told to get turned down for an application to put a new poles up.
Yeah,
and that's why we came for a variance on the existing.
Yeah. And the part with substantiality just says nothing substantial, but it's continuation of a legal conforming use. So it's allowing something that would not be allowed as of right out of the gate. So it is quite a substantial. In my view, it's at least a significant deviation. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm jumping all of these.
Yeah. So for a sign that would be shorter, more like a monument style sign, which is, typically done with like brick or something like that, it cannot be between like the 3 and 6 foot height if it's located like directly on a corner right here, because it would impede the sight lines around a corner. But that's only true if it's within, so basically the way you would calculate that is by 20 feet from the intersecting curb lines. And when I calculated that, essentially it would be somewhere like right around here. So you could have a monument style or shorter sign that would meet the code requirements and be out of the concerns for visibility and sight lines.
But what size would that sign?
It would be under, a second. Here. So it could be up to 6 feet. Sorry, it could be up to 5 feet. And it would be allowed to be 64 square feet. Let me just double check that.
I guess one question is, it's only the other names, but is one of the reasons the current proposal is to reduce is that there's already a saying to like you didn't consider moving the sign and making it into something conforming because why not do something there? And maybe that's cheaper.
It's definitely cheaper. I mean, you'd have to put all the footers in and electrical and all kinds of stuff. And, I guess just, looking at it, it was a legal sign when it was put up. We were just asking to replace it, not change it, not move it, not do anything other than clean it up, paint it, change the mobile logo out to a Sunoco logo, same size where the price sign has been and has had no issues for decades that it's been a gas station. Just change it to an LED sign that, would better serve the safety of the employees, and the public would have a better representation what the actual price of gasoline at a more accurate time.
What is needed to make it into a electric sign?
It's basically that same cabinet will be used. The cabinet will be built to go right into it. So it would be no difference in size. It's going to go from, right now it's showing 3 products. I believe what we're recommending is 2 products.
And there's already electrical.
Yeah, it's already electrical. That all lights up. It's all already illuminated sign.
There's no work needed.
It's basically sanding, painting, replacing the, those are plastic pieces, just basically manufacturing new ones that fit the existing cabinets.
You mentioned a safety measure for employees. Is that inherently dangerous the way the sign's set up?
Well, those things are in channels, so especially in wintertime, they get frozen in there, the numbers. So a lot of times they have to go out and bang on them to break the ice up because you have to lift and pull them out. So, heavy gloves sometimes are not the easiest things to get out. That one is not as hard because it's lower to the ground. The other ones, it was, we actually supplied hard hats to the employees, and the old style ones that were higher off the ground because the wind catches them and they come flying and hit you and stuff. So, it's other than that, I think the LED is really where everybody's going.
Yeah, I mean, we're being asked to allow variance to the modification of something that by code is not supposed to be modified. So it's a significant deviation from code. And one of the requests we'd always have from an applicant is how to minimize the variance. So is there any consideration of making the sign smaller or eliminating some of those lights on the sign that hang over it in order to minimize the light impact from the sign and the surrounding neighborhood?
The property owners here, you do have an objection to those lights that hang off the side of the. Well, we're going to do that. If that'll help, we can obviously
I don't
those.
I'm not trying to steer. I'm just, if that's part of the application, it should be noted in the application as part of your narrative. But the bigger struggle is signs like this are just not allowed in code. So it's a significant deviation from it.
It's also a historic district, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's part of that speaks to the character of the neighborhood being out of character. So
yeah, just to clarify on that, if this were to move forward, so if it were to be approved for a variance, it would require review from the Historic Resources Commission.
Right. I'm just asking in the context of we also are character of the neighborhood. This is a pedestrian neighborhood that also has a big roadway project coming to further incentivize pedestrian character and development.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is like one of the entry points to that pedestrian neighborhood corridor. So this is like one of the first impressions. So I'm thinking, what is the actual character of this neighborhood that we're as a city working on?
And I think that's why we wrote the code. The council wrote the code to say to us, non-conforming signs should make an effort when they're modified to come into conformance with monument signs that warn character. So that's why I'm not inclined to forward. Do we have anybody from the public that wishes to speak on behalf of the application? Or anybody joining us from the audience?
No one signed up and no one logged on for it.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Appreciate your time. With that, we'll close the public comment period. I'm not convinced about the alternatives considered on this application. And especially when it comes to the character of the neighborhood and the modification of non-conforming signs. We're in a similar situation with Mobile and Scotland, where they came with us with some proposal and it wouldn't fly. So, I think it would be disingenuous of us to move forward in this application and not having forward about. So,
I will say that the Mobile and New Scotland did come back recently for a monument sign as a way of meeting the code requirements.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's just part of like being part of a neighborhood and contributing to that character and
moving towards meeting the law.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we want us to more information on alternatives.
Alternatives considered, or a sign that doesn't need a variance. I mean, you don't have to need a variance for this particular item. A monument sign would just fit the bill and get out of the gate real fast. So.
I guess more arguments as to why that, or arguments as to why that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't think that it isn't feasible. And I hate to tell somebody getting more information and I'm not going to move forward on it. Although I feel like the prior application, I was exactly like, I haven't made my mind yet, so I didn't want to hold it to that full load, but I'm not.
So we're making a motion to table and requesting additional information, particularly about alternatives.
Sure.
Considered.
Okay. Yeah.
I would like to make a motion to table this for additional information.
Okay. Do you have a second? Check. All in favor? Aye. That is the last piece in the agenda. So, all right. I'd like to thank folks for joining us this evening, and anyone who's joining us remotely. With that, since we've reached the end of our agenda, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Adriana. We'll reach out with the fence as far as documentation that we can work to minimize that variance and supplement the record for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.